Gotta be honest here, the moment that struck me is the whole show. I mean, I'm gonna be gushing for 95% of this, and I'm not sorry. I know Hilda came out last year, but I only got around to watching it this year, and like most things in my life, I'm sad I didn't get around to it sooner. Hilda is a British-Canadian series that is based off of the comic book of the same name. I don't read comics, like, at all. So this was also a surprise to me, like how Cannon Busters was also based off a comic thing. The series stars the blue-haired Hilda and her deer fox, Twig. Real talk, Twig is like 1/3 of the show appeal, like right there. Just look at how cute this thing is! I want 10! Now, I am biased in this since I don't watch a lot of grown-up stuff if I can avoid it, but this show looked alright at first, at least from the poster, and then it felt odd. Like it wasn't quite a standard cartoon vibe, it introduced a sense of fantasy right off the bat. And not just because the main character can see and interact with mythical beings, every setting is portrayed as both mundane, like cabins or apartments, and odd through inclusions of little beings, like the elf bureaucrat who accompanies Hilda, or a variety of other entities the city contains. It all feels so casual. I think that's what the show's message is. How we consider normal shouldn't be just normal. A lot of shows have this approach, I admit, but Hilda also introduces the idea of how these other beings are just like us. How maybe they have their own problems, maybe just how being decent people can be more important than magic sometimes. Such entities in the show are, while not the most unique in such settings, save for a handful, fit well into their respective locales. Small elven spirits, root creatures, clouds portrayed as sentient storm beings, which they are sentient, of course, so this is correct. Just a few of the ones introduced. Each episode uses each entity to teach it. Wow, did I write that? Each episode uses each entity to teach a. That is a mouthful. Each episode uses these creatures to teach a small lesson to the audience. I mean, it's a kid's show, so that fits. But it's the way these lessons are shown that makes it work. Like the episodes dealing with the elven spirits at first. It teaches a sense of quid pro quo, doing favors and such, but also sprinkles in the idea of how inefficient old rules can be. And to splash in that how devoted love can be a hindrance to both parties sometimes or others if taken too far. There's not really a clear-cut good guy most of the time, and I love that. In fact, the humans in this show, not Hilda, at least 80% of the time, are portrayed as sort of closed off from things, like closed-minded, except for when directly dragged into events. Hilda's friends and mother being prime examples. In fact, if only examples. Hilda makes two human friends in the city she moves to after episode 1, David and Frida. They get frequently dragged into Hilda's escapades and sometimes are the catalysts of the episode. Hilda's mother, mum, rather, remains oblivious to strange happenings in the show until about halfway, I think. And even after the mother sees weird stuff, she tries to ignore it, but to her credit, her focus is on her daughter's safety and her own job. So they're kind of more important, really. It makes Hilda stand out as the protagonist of the show, and the eye through which the audience sees the different beings. It also makes her trials or difficulties more, difficult, since she's often solo and faces the scorn or sidelong glances of those who can't see what is actually there. Hilda is a free spirit, but she is just as lonely, and as the series goes on, it shows. It's not that grim, it's a kid's show, but it's definitely a theme. One episode in particular, I forget which one, has and this sounds odd out loud, a space dimension warping dog that, while usually the size of a modern car, can shrink into the smallest spaces behind cabinets and travel between areas pocket dimension style. Yeah, bear with me here. The episode starts with vandalism happening around town, and is being blamed on local house spirits. Yeah, there's a thing about the episode where, every household, apparently people know that there's these, local little guys, little beings that live in their house. And they just accept it, which is weird because you think they would question these things if they're not used to, thunderbirds or weird portals opening up, but you get the idea. But later on, there's rumors of a giant beast that roams this forest and the towns, snatching people up. Hilda finds out about this big beast and wants to go track it down, naturally. She finds it and it's a big black dog. And trying to catch it is also sort of caught up in the vandalism idea. She's sort of blamed or implied for some of the vandalism. She pushes through with the search and discovers that the great beast is not trying to destroy anything. It's just a lost puppy, albeit big, looking for its owner, who happens to be a small other house spirit that lives in her apartment, or at least one nearby. Only then does her mother slightly understand. The fact that she actually sees these house spirits finally and listens to her daughter, which doesn't happen too often in the show. That's not uncommon either. A problem that is huge at first builds up even more, and it's really all from a small issue that's been made worse from misunderstanding. especially the Cloud Senate episode. That was kind of an interesting take on storms, let's say. Shut up, past me. This show ain't all morals. The art style is a nice mix of colors and in a matte style. Matte? Is that right? Whatever. It looks nice, okay? The character animations are fluid. The settings, the natural ones, even the unnatural ones like the cities and stuff, they're all gorgeous. The creatures are unique, and I'm sure some are pulled from some old folklore. It's beautiful. I love it. And yeah, the show can be simple or harp on one section or node for too long. Several episodes do that. They stick with one area or one plot point for a while longer than needed, but for this kind of approach, it works. I can see it's more of a pacing thing or for sake of runtime. But also, again, it's for a young audience. It's a simple show on the surface, but subtlety in details are what make this show work. Heck, I learned how to make cucumber sandwiches from this show. But like the mighty avocado, I always forget about the cucumbers in my fridge. They always go bad. Seriously, look up cucumber sandwiches. They're good snacks. I always do terrible jobs at talking about these shows. Hilda is a slightly and subtly complex kid show that looks soft at first, but very colorful and very gorgeous, and is a good try through some fantasy-based modern day life. Watch it if you want a relaxing show full of heart and a comforting, if slightly odd tone. I'd give it 8 out of 10 in my book at least. Of course, as it has been so far, it is on Netflix, so give it a glance if you want. Then make yourself a cucumber sandwich. Is good.